The Metaphysics of Change. We can now think of Aristotle's first philosophy as a philosophy of substance. By these, we consider it as a systematic way of disambiguating the various systematically related meanings of substance to which Aristotle calls attention. Aristotle's understanding of substance consists of two endpoints that set limits to the kinds of substance bounded by non-substances. In the one case, at the formal extreme, the primum mobile is pure actuality, while prime matter protehyale at the opposite material extreme is undifferentiated material stuff requiring form or definition of some sort in order even to constitute any of the material elements that enter into the physical composition of bodies or primary substances. In between the extremes of primum mobile and protehyale, all elements, primary and secondary substances in the true sense of the word, are arranged according to their proximity either to the primum mobile or to the pure form or protehyale, sorry. Primary substances belong in the middle of this theory of substance. They are located equidistally from the extreme of pure form or pure actuality. So that what we're looking at really is a particular way of understanding substance, such that this understanding of substance is defined by, as we were saying a while ago, the protehyale or pure matter, and on the other hand, the primum mobile or the unmoved mover. And as we said a while ago, the primary substance is in the middle, exactly in the middle. This is a primary substance. And then we can now see the uniqueness of things, because if there are material elements, it will be at this level. And by the material elements, of course, we are talking about earth, air, fire, water, and ether. And of course, something that we also spoke about is the definitions or secondary substances, and they will fall at this level. There. So this is the theory of substance of Aristotle. So as we were saying, primary substances is in the middle, and they are located equidistally from the extremes of pure form, primum mobile, and pure actuality, and protehyale or pure undifferentiated pure potentiality or matter. Range along this theory between the primary substances and pure form are the definitions, species, forms, or secondary substances. And these are the more formal than material, despite being substances, but as substances in Aristotle's sense, they still contain matter of some kind, even if it is only a definition subject matter. Along the other side of the theory of substance is the opposite direction between primary substances and prime or pure undifferentiated matter, as included in the Aristotelian's 5 elements. These are more material than formal, but have at least some formal properties, but which they are differentiated from prime matter as specific kinds of material stuff. As material elements, of course, they are not themselves primary substances that exist independently in themselves and in the full sense of the word, but exist only insofar as they constitute the underlying material basis of all primary substances. It is in relation to these that we need to ask ourselves, how can we tell without actually destroying a substance, whether any of its properties is essential or merely accidental. There's a discussion space below. Please answer this question there. Aristotle's theory of substance explains the nature of change in the theory of substance as the centerpiece of Aristotle's first philosophy. He observes that sensible substances is subject to change, implying that non-sensible substance is eternal and unchangeable. He repeats the formulation by which change is movement between opposites paired together in a contrariety. When the category of change being considered is an alteration among the accidental properties of a substance, a primary substance exchanges one secondary substance in a contrariety for its contrary. Aristotle remarks that substances undergo change with respect to contrary properties, but that contraries themselves as predicables do not change. We can look at these citation from 1069b, and it is worth reading. At any rate, sensible substances is susceptible of change. Now, change is from opposites or the intermediate and not from all opposites, for there cannot be change from the color white to a voice, say, although white is indeed an opposite of voice, but from contraries. So there must necessarily be some underlying thing changing into the contrary state, since contraries themselves do not change. We can go even to the succeeding point. There is then in change a continuant. While the first of the two contrary states involved do not persist, there is a third thing in addition to the contraries, namely matter. There. So there are, of course, 4 types of change, blah, blah, blah. But then you see the first kind change involving a this is generation or destructions, simpliciter. Quantitative change is increase and diminution. Qualitative change is alteration, and local change is travel. A change then is made what it is by the repair of contraries that it involves. Now, it is surely necessary that changing matter should potentially be both contraries, and we end there. Aristotle distinguishes change, and he defends a distinction that cuts across the more fundamental distinction between essential and accidental change. He mentions in this connection changes of essence, sometimes referred to as a thing's quiddity or thisness, its being a this quality, quantity, and place, which he contrasts with alterations of affection. All such changes, Aristotle indicates, can be characterized as a transitions between the opposite terms of an appropriate contrariety. The conclusion is that change for Aristotle should be understood either as generation or corruption, creation or destruction, or identity-preserving alterations. The question that troubled the pre-Socratics and Plato, how something can change and yet remain the same, is answered in Aristotle's first philosophy by distinguishing between kinds of change. Like the practicing biologist he is, Aristotle proposes a taxonomy of all the related species of phenomena his theory is supposed to explain, and proceeding scientifically divides up his explanation according to the multiplicity of kinds of changes the theory is meant to include. Aristotle does not seek to oversimplify either the phenomena to be explained or the explanations by which he proposes to understand the nature of change. Aristotle's first philosophy identifies every substance in terms of its essence. Each substance in each category of substance has a core of essential properties. A substance persists true change when only its accidental and not its essential properties are affected. More extreme changes results in the destruction of an entity, which Aristotle explains as the elimination of the entity's essential properties, without which the substance cannot continue to exist as the same kind of substance. The possibilities are complex, and Aristotle explains the conditions for all the variations in functional terms as factors of the kind of natural final cause of each different species of primary substance, of each kind of discrete physical sensible object that happens to exist. It is only in such primary substances that secondary substances, the definitions and formal principles of things subsist and inhere. Aristotle in this way explains change as an essential or accidental movement from non-existence to creation, or from existence to corruption or destruction, or from one accidental condition to another. By observing these distinctions, Aristotle is able to answer the riddle posed by Plato and the pre-Socratics about how things change while remaining the same. His solution agrees with common sense judgment in many respects. The solution to the ancient problem of understanding the nature of change is managed in Aristotle's first philosophy by bringing together the separate, formal, and material principles of Plato and the pre-Socratics in a way that neither of these extremes, advanced exclusively by themselves, could not actually hope to achieve. The theory of substance in Aristotle's first philosophy provides an intuitive solution that combines form and matter in a metaphysics of primary and secondary substance, essential and accidental properties, God, pure form, pure actuality, and prime matter or pure potentiality, and distinctions among several kinds of changes of creation, destruction, and identity preserving alterations. At the end of an entire course, it's interesting to consider where are we in Aristotle. To end, Aristotle defines substances as informed matter, combining both form and matter. His metaphysics can be described by a theory of substance that is bounded at opposite extremes by pure form, or primum mobile as pure actuality, and protehaile as pure potentiality. In between, there are different combinations of form and matter at distinct points along the spectrum. And this includes the 5 elements, earth, air, fire, water, and ether, near the material extreme, primary substances at the very center, as substances in the most proper and metaphysically most basic sense. This is also known as individual spatio-temporal physical entities, and secondary substances or definitions that inhere in primary substances and are located closer to the formal extreme. Aristotle distinguishes between a thing's essential and accidental qualities. A thing's essence consists of those properties without which it would not exist or could not continue to exist. Aristotle's properties are those that can be altered in a thing without destroying it as a thing, or the general kind associated with its essence. Aristotle solves the problem of change that has perplexed Plato and the pre-Socratic philosophers by appealing to the distinction between a substance essence and accidents. The question how a thing can change and yet remain the same is answered by the theory that the substance remains the same only when its accidental properties change, leaving its essence unaffected and preserving whatever essentially makes something the particular kind of thing it is according to its nature. A substance essence is also and independently defined in terms of its natural function. Secondary substances are Aristotle's modified version of Plato's forms. Although Plato's forms would exist in the abstract, even if none of their instances happen to exist, Aristotle's secondary substances exist only insofar as they inhere in existent substances. That's why it's very interesting to answer for the finals the question, how might Aristotle interpret Socrates' geometry lesson with Meno's slave? We have an entire recording of Meno, but something to consider how Aristotle would answer that question. By emphasizing the importance of sense experience in knowledge, especially of the changing physical world, Aristotle paves the way for a very different style of philosophy, to which, despite these differences, his thought owes a significant debt. Aristotle's philosophy is an important precursor of modern scientific method and logical analysis in philosophical inquiry. Plato and Aristotle, in their respective systems of thought, represent a fundamental opposition in philosophical method and ideology. Their differences complement one another, and together they stand as the first great thinkers of ancient Greek philosophy. The choices in philosophical outlook that they defend are actually found in different forms at different times throughout the history of philosophy. This ends our commentary of Aristotle's Metaphysics. Again, if you like this type of content, I'd hope you'd help me share, post, like, subscribe to this channel, Samo't sa Simula, to sustain this work. Thank you very much.